Hi, welcome to Behind the Scenes with Axiom Medical. I'm your host, Jason McElhinney. If you're returning, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you watching. If this is your first time watching, this is basically a bi-weekly show where we interview people in Axiom Medical that make the company tick. We've been doing this a little over a year now. Had to take a couple weeks off due to travel, but we're back at it. And with this episode, I'm very excited to introduce you to Sarah Matthews, who is our graphic designer. Sarah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So where in the world are you right now?
I am up in the Mitten State. I'm in the Metro Detroit area, Southeast Michigan. That's on the Lower Peninsula for people who just kind of look at this general landmass and the lake situation we have up here.
Yeah, it's not too far from Ohio. It's still a little bit, but not too far from Ohio, right?
Yeah. It's not terribly far. It's a thing where people will still drive down for the day to like Cedar Point. But generally we like to stay up here.
Well, welcome. Hopefully the weather serves you well this winter and fall and spring. As someone who grew up basically on the same parallel line of where you are now, I understand the weather that's about to come compared to the weather here in South Texas, which is, for my Canadians and my Brits, it's 33 degrees or something like that. 30 degrees. Oh no, it's 82 Fahrenheit. I just checked, so it's nice and sunny here. A lot better weather than currently in Florida that they're having right now.
Yeah.
So go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell the people who you are, what you do here, how long you've been.
Well, I am a relatively new addition to the marketing team. I started at Axiom in February. So as a graphic designer and web designer, I am taking information that we want to put out into the world, whether it's coming through marketing or sometimes things that are coming through sales or things that are a little more informational, and they're going to, come straight from our medical teams, and kind of taking that information and making sure it's dressed for success before we put it out in the world to share. So that's anything from flyers you could see to pages on the website or graphics on social media. Any and all of those things.
And anything the future holds, that's for sure. One thing with Axiom is we've done so many different things over the years to try to make sure that we're serving our clients well. And with COVID, we ventured into new services and new products that we hadn't had before. So there's always something new on the horizon.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So where were you prior to this? What were you doing? Lead us up to how you joined Axiom.
Yeah. So I have a past actually in sustainability and culture building. So I worked in the sustainability area for a while before I came into Axiom, and looking at things like battery recycling. So still very technical, but not part of that medical field, but still with a focus on, kind of trying to build a better world. I guess it's a little cheesy, but it's true. That's kind of always been the through line, other than, making pictures pretty, which is another fun part of the job.
And, I think you kind of carried on with that, with what we do with Axiom. Our end goal is to help workers. So it's still doing good. So what do you do outside of work? What are some hobbies that you have?
Well, I really love movies. That's kind of how I got into that graphics space, was doing some work that I was doing on like student films. I was making posters and designing t-shirts, and I was like, oh, I kind of really like this. But one thing that I do in my free time every once in a while is a thing called the 48-Hour Film Project, which is an international competition. It's held in different cities at different times all over the world. But teams of filmmakers have 48 hours. So starting at 7 p.m. on a Friday, and they have to turn in a completed short film by 7 p.m. on a Sunday. So that's a thing that I compete in every year. And actually this year, my team won our closest city. So we will be going to the international competition, which will be in LA in March, I believe.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. So we've got a bit of a celebrity on our team.
I do most of my work behind the camera. So I'm a writer on my team, and I wrote this film and then did some polishing up with a couple other team members. And then I also do costuming. And I did a little bit of choreography this time, which was something different.
That's fantastic. For those people that are watching, if you want to add Sarah as a friend on LinkedIn, I'm sure she'll probably can share a link to the 48-hour project and the stuff that she's worked on in the past. That's fantastic. So when you go to LA, it's a whole new process. Like they give you a new, like you have to get a new idea and have to go through it again.
No. Luckily, there's a lot of people kind of internationally who are going. So what we get to do is take our films that won our various cities, and then all of those completed films are in competition with each other. But it's a really neat experience because you're meeting up with people from all over, because there are cities in Europe, there are cities in Asia, there are cities in Australia who are all coming to this competition. And some of them are able to make it, but those films from all over are shown. And you get to spend, I think, 4 days meeting up with other filmmakers and people who are doing this because it's something fun to do. It's not necessarily focused on like a professional environment. It's kind of like film nerd marathons, if you will, where everybody's traveling for one specific goal.
And some of the short films and the ones that you worked on as well are really well crafted, like very well made in such a short amount of time. It's amazing. So if you're out there and you're watching, go to, I don't know what their website is, but just Google 48-hour film project, and each city has their own region. Here in Houston, we have some great people that run it and also make movies. So if you're interested, go check it out. There's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say if anybody is interested in competing, but they don't have a team, but you're saying, oh, I have like a bunch of cool clothes, or I can make really good fake blood, and someone might need a special effects person. There's city producers that run each of those cities, and they usually have a Facebook page or some sort of community chat where people will say, hey, I would love to find a team, and they will help place people. So don't feel like you have to go in knowing enough people to create a full movie or being, a one-woman show and doing the whole thing yourself.
Yeah, that would be almost impossible. I would think. Knowing all the stuff that goes on to create these things, it would take a lot. And I have some friends here that I do improv with that do a lot of the 48-hour film project stuff here in Houston, and it's really creative stuff. And it's just such a great, an amazing challenge. And you get a topic or you get a genre, and you have to create something in 48 hours and film it and edit it and dust it and polish it and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's a whirlwind.
Yeah, I bet. Well, let's go to some comments. We got some comments from Christy, who is currently in Florida, but is can chime in. So Christy says, "Congrats, Sarah! So excited for you." And then Dom says, "Can I get an autograph?"
Yeah, maybe we're going to have a team meetup sometime in the near future. So yeah, I can bring some 8x10 glossies, Dom.
He's just gonna want you to say just your autograph so we can sell them on the aftermarket.
Makes sense.
For those that are watching that don't know, back in March of 2020, we went fully remote. And so we've had different people in each department that we haven't seen physically. So we're going to have an in-office meeting in November, I believe. So I'll be able to meet Sarah for the first time in person, and you'll be able to meet everyone else on the team, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, should be fun. And it's not a bad time to get out of Michigan that time of year. So I'll appreciate going somewhere a little warmer.
November in Texas is, it could either be, 90 degrees or it could be 60 degrees, but I'm sure it's going to be better than the 40 degrees that you're going to have in Michigan at that time.
Yeah. It usually starts to get pretty cold around then. I don't mind it once we get a tiny bit of snow, and it's very pretty. Snow is very pretty from Thanksgiving through New Year's. But if that was the point where it just went away, that would maybe be better.
Yeah, if you're shoveling snow until April, it really loses all its romanticism about it, and it just becomes just horrible.
That is very true.
Seth chimes in and says Sarah is so cool. So you got some fans.
Thank you. I think that my Blu-ray collection might argue with you, but
oh well,
yes.
let's talk about that. Let's talk. So you love
Yeah.
you're amazing. You're a great, fantastic graphic designer, amazing graphic designer. But your love of film is really interesting to me because I love film as well. So let's talk about it. What's some of your favorite movies? Some of your favorite directors?
Ooh. I really was kind of raised on the like MGM big spectacle musicals, and that was kind of what first got me into film. But I quickly got really into horror movies. I think probably because, that was not something that my parents were watching. So it was this unknown, scary, scary thing. And when I first saw a few of those movies that were cited to me as being so scary, I was like, actually, not that bad, but very fun. I like this. So another thing that I do is every year, every October, so we're getting into that season, I do a thing where I watch a horror movie every day. And some of them are repeats, some of them are old favorites, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I sit down and devote 2 hours to watching it in one go, or I'm not, doing laundry or dishes while I'm working on through those. But every year I pick a theme and watch 31 horror movies. So this year I think that I'm going to do vampires because it's just fun. I've done more specific things in the past. I've done all films that were directed by women, horror movies that were directed by women. And then one year I did international horror. So it was all kind of places you would need a passport to go to and mostly subtitled. So lots of different stuff out there. So that's kind of my area. But I love things like John Carpenter movies. I don't necessarily knock points off of things for feeling cheesy. I feel like if you have a good idea and the execution is not quite there, it's still probably a fun watch.
Oh, for sure. And I think, when you're looking at the old horror movies, you have to kind of keep things in perspective of what was available at the time. I know for me, and I haven't watched it since then, but one of the scariest movies for me growing up was John Carpenter's The Thing. That movie was just, man, it freaked me out. But I got crazy into I wanted to know how horror movies were made, so I used to buy Fangoria magazine all the time. And for people that aren't familiar, Fangoria is basically a horror fanzine about the craft of horror movies and not necessarily about the macabreness of it, but like interviewing Rick Baker and that kind of stuff. So horror movies were definitely up my alley. I used to ride over to the other side of town when I was a kid because there was only one store in my hometown that sold the magazine, and I thought it was far away. I thought my parents were going to kill me if they found out how far away it was. And then a couple years ago I pulled it up on Google Maps, and it was really only like 3 miles away. But as a kid, you're like, this is a different world.
Yeah, definitely. I had the allowance of a local library that had a good DVD collection, so I didn't necessarily have to go and deal with the local movie rental place people who were a little more likely to say, check your ID and make sure that you were allowed to rent this movie, where the librarians were like, yeah, it's rated R, but it's black and white. You're fine.
So what's your favorite horror movie?
Ooh, I mean, John Carpenter's The Thing is definitely up there. But I also like things that are maybe a little more stylized, like the 1977 Suspiria is pretty high on my list. Dario Argento's Suspiria. The remake was fun, but I definitely would recommend if people like a little bit of color, something like that. And then some of the older stuff as well. I'm a big fan of William Castle's House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, which is a little bit goofy, but I think something like that is just fun. And sometimes you want something that's a little silly that kind of fills that for fans of like Hocus Pocus, that kind of spot. Maybe it's not as directly a comedy, but it certainly has its moments.
That's great. Your love of film is fantastic. And we got another comment here from Michelle. It says Sarah is a rock star, both on and off the job, obviously.
Thanks, Michelle.
There you go. I geeked out a little bit. I was in California a week and a half ago, and while we were there, the cinematographer Roger Deakins was doing some book signings. So my wife and I trucked over to Santa Monica to go, and the lineup was really long to get his book personalized. But I got a signed copy and got to see him. So that was as a fan of cinematography and photography, I don't think there's anyone better than him alive at the moment.
Yeah.
So, what does the future hold for you?
Ooh, good question. I do think I'm going to keep making some movies. I'm working on a couple of scripts right now that would be out of that 48-hour space, but things that I might end up making with my team. That's kind of our own little production company. But I also am just really enjoying working at Axiom. It's a little, cheesy, but it's so nice to be working remote when you live in a place where sometimes it dumps a couple feet of snow on you. I certainly do not miss having to be out in that all the time, but also this team is so supportive. This has just been one of the best environments that I've found for doing this kind of marketing work, where everybody's just coming in with a really positive attitude and best intentions. So I just want to keep making fun things with everyone here.
Well, we want you to keep doing that as well. Things do get heated every once in a while in any situation, obviously, but we try to keep things positive and try to be supportive. One of the things internally that we always talk about is, just making sure that we've got each other's back, or back having, as we would say. So yeah, that's great. So speaking of video, I'm hoping at some point that we can partner up in person and film some stuff. I've been primarily doing the production of everything, and it would be great to have somebody help out with that. And that was one of the things that I found attractive when we were interviewing you is your knowledge with video. And we filmed a bunch of stuff with our doctor, Les Curte, who's our senior VP of behavioral health, Autumn Brennan, who I interviewed last year. And I flew out to Chattanooga in February and filmed a bunch of stuff with him. And I'm sure hopefully everyone that's watching has seen all those videos. They're on TikTok and YouTube and our Facebook and LinkedIn pages. But I'm hoping that we can get partner up the two of us and get some more videos out there and get some more storytelling.
Yeah, I think that it would be really fun. I have a lot of ideas. So being able to meet up in person and kind of strategize is going to be a fun way to look forward to everything that's coming next year.
For sure. And we've got a bunch of hardware. So we've got a bunch of cameras and gear and stuff like that. So we got all that. Oh, Dara chimes in and says, "Aw." Dara is our chief marketing officer and our overall boss, who's fantastic. I interviewed her last year. Please check it out. So we're coming up towards the end here. You got anything else you want to add? Any parting words of wisdom? Anything you're watching right now that you want people to check out?
Ooh, I haven't been watching a lot of TV right now because I've sort of been preparing myself for my month of movie watching, which means it's a lot of audiobooks and a lot of podcasts. But I would recommend, if anybody is looking to watch some of those, let's say, 80s horror movies, I know that they're about to put a really nice collection on a streaming service called Criterion Channel, who I'm sure has some sort of free trial. So if that is something you're looking to get into, they do a really nice job of curating little collections of movies. So I know that they have an 80s horror selection coming up for October, and that's including a movie that I love called Near Dark, that is very hard to find on streaming. So I would say definitely check that out. But if you're looking to get into horror movies in general and or maybe that's something you really like, there's another service called Shudder. And all of these are, a little bit cheaper than Netflix, which is nice as everybody else is kind of raising their prices. So Shudder is another place where you can, and that's with 2 Ds, find some fun things to watch. But yeah, and anyone feel free to message me. I'm always happy to give movie recommendations if you are looking for something specific and you know kind of things that you've liked, I can always riff on that and find you something new to watch.
Claire chimes in with thanks for the movie tips. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's so much content out there. There's so much content that's still coming. I find it dizzying just to turn on, and with all the streaming services that we have now with Hulu and Amazon and Apple TV and Disney and Netflix and Shudder and everything, it's just you spend more time trying to figure out what you want to watch, and then you turn it on, and you're like, I don't even want to watch this anymore. So my wife and I started the show. It's called The Patient with Steve Carell last night. Very interesting psychological thriller, worth checking out if anyone wants to see it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate you stopping by and talking with us. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything you want to say before we leave?
No, just everybody have a good rest of their week and a very early happy Halloween to you all.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you so much. It was good talking to you. See you, everybody.